There was a police shooting in Minneapolis recently that I didn't hear much about, at least comparatively. Usually when there's a police shooting of a black individual in particular, there are 24-hour CNN panels with emphasis on just how peaceful all the subsequent protests were, pay no attention to any vandalism, looting, or violence. And I think the reason I saw less coverage of this story is just based on the facts. This case is very difficult to protest rationally. It's a case of a clear threat to the public, a clear threat to officers. It's a case of a man who was given several opportunities to disarm himself and surrender to the police, but opted not to do that, put police in a precarious position, and paid the price for it. Let's take a look at what actually happened. On June 23rd, an anonymous caller called 911 with reports of a man, likely drunk, walking around drinking and firing a handgun. The caller offered a specific description of the man and his weapon.
There's a guy walking around shooting off his gun, and he looks intoxicated. The caller gave a detailed description of the gunman, wearing a white or gray tank top in a black backpack, and of the gun. Quote, a silver 9mm if I'm not mistaken. It's chrome at the top.
As of this past Sunday, the officer's body cam footage is available to view. When police show up, they find their suspect, Thurman Blevins, matching the caller's description in not only his outfit, but also with the 9mm handgun as described on his hip. Police command him to put his hands up and to drop his weapon, but Blevins runs, and a chase ensues for 2 blocks.
Put your hands up! Put it down! Put it down! Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
As he's running in an alley, Blevins grabs his gun from his hip, at which point police shoot him dead. Subsequent investigation of the scene revealed a spent casing from Blevins' gun near his body. I can't see in the body cam footage when or where he actually fired it, so it's unclear if he was actually aiming at the cops or not. But in any case, when you're commanded by the police to disarm and instead you fire, it's very difficult to argue you weren't putting yourself and others in mortal danger. Last detail to consider, it's not specific to this particular incident, but it is necessary context. Blevins had an extensive criminal record, including felony assault on a police officer. Here's the head of the Minneapolis Police Union explaining.
By the age of 31, Blevins racked up 6 felony convictions. Among them, fleeing police, assaulting an officer, narcotics possession, and felon in possession of a pistol. These are just his convictions, let alone gross misdemeanor and misdemeanor convictions or arrests. At 31 years of age, that's quite a criminal history.
For reasons that seem pretty clear to me, the Hennepin County prosecutor opted not to bring charges against the 2 officers who fatally shot Blevins. As a layman, I'm not sure what more these cops could have done. They gave Blevins several opportunities to disarm and surrender, and even when they had to chase him through several blocks, they didn't shoot until he became a clear threat to them with a gun of his own in his hands. This was not a case of bloodthirsty cops. In my judgment, this was a case of cops who actually exercised discretion until lethal force became the only option to protect themselves and others. And as a legal matter, Mike Freeman, the county prosecutor, agrees, concluding after investigation that the police were justified in fearing for their lives, thus justified in using lethal force. And on Monday, he held a press conference to announce his decision not to prosecute these officers. And even though as a legal matter, it sounds like this case was pretty clear cut, the county prosecutor made sure to be sensitive to the Blevins family first and foremost to start his press conference. He even delayed his remarks by 10 minutes so that the family could attend.
Okay, I think we need to get started.
I think not. I think we should wait for the family.
Where are they? Are they coming? They're here in the building? Okay. We'll wait another 5 minutes.
And when he did start speaking, the first thing he did was offer condolences.
I want to start by extending my personal condolence to the Blevins family. To lose a family member, especially at Thurman Blevins' young age, is always a tragedy.
Not good enough, though, of course. The county prosecutor didn't get even 5 minutes into explaining the investigation and his decision before the family and activists joining them started heckling him, making it impossible for him to speak and shutting down the press conference entirely.
Officers are required to react quickly in tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving situations needed to be taken into account.
It's murder!
It's murder.
Understandably frustrated, the prosecutor left the press conference, and the activists had the audacity to accuse him of insensitivity to the family. Okay, first off, he just finished expressing sympathy. And second, expressing sympathy isn't his job. So no, I didn't see Mike Freeman walk out on the victim's family because one, you aren't the family of a victim. You are the family of a criminal who was endangering others. And two, he didn't walk out on you. You forced him out. What follows is an excruciating exercise in patience. I pride myself on a high tolerance for this sort of material. I actually enjoy analyzing it, but I'll admit, watching this footage had me boiling. I had to take several breaks. The family and the activists take the mic to host their own press conference, and their commentary isn't just divorced from the facts. It's actually threatening, even terroristic in nature. The first guy on the mic threatens to tear up the city.
And I'm here to tell y'all that we're tired of it. Y'all ain't seen the city tore up.
The next woman on the mic, a cousin of Thurman Blevins, says it's not only all of our fault as the general public, but the media's fault too for perpetuating a false narrative.
Anybody in this world want to sit here and say, in regards to Thurman Blevins shooting that happened on June 23rd of 2018 and say that these officers justified the situation? The problem maybe isn't the officers, but maybe it's the civilians.
Or Channel 5 for lying.
Or maybe it's the media for putting out this wrong and false narrative when you know already the BCA is not done with their investigation. So any information in regards of Thurman's shooting or anything is false information.
Unedited body cam footage is not false information. I'm relying on a first-hand recording of what happened, not some second-hand description. I'm relying on body cam footage that shows us unfiltered, free from bias, exactly what happened. Oh, but the cops edited the recording, they say. They messed with the sound.
They're distorting the sound. What you're hearing, that's not really how it all goes. They're taking pieces out, so you're not seeing the true picture.
Yeah, well, I'm not relying on sound either. I am watching visually a man disobeying police commands to disarm and surrender, instead running away, carrying a firearm in his hand, which could fire at police on a moment's notice. And what would editing the sound possibly conceal anyway? This is where their explanation gets truly baffling. They say Blevins was forced to run from the police.
He was forced to run away from his family so that they wouldn't shoot him down in his own community in front of his kids. That's what the black community has to face day by day, minute by minute, second by second, as they continue to try to live and survive there in North Minneapolis.
So what? His kids live with him on the street corner where the cops found him then? So you're telling me that this is a man who simply doesn't want to subject his children to a traumatizing display, all the while he's day drunk on a street corner with a bottle of gin in one hand and a gun firing at random in the other? How does this make any sense? It doesn't. But we better obey or she's gonna make us pay.
And we want the officers arrested in the next 48 hours, or there will be further consequences. And that is all we have to say. Mike Freeman, you better think long and hard in regards to prosecuting these officers. Because if you don't, I'll let you finish that.
Okay, these are terroristic threats. These are threats of violence with a political motive. The only person in this entire scenario who should be arrested and prosecuted is this lady on the mic right now. And yes, it's hard to believe, but it does actually get worse from here. A reporter from the Star Tribune, the local newspaper, asked her what she means by forthcoming consequences.
You had said that if they don't arrest the officers in 48 hours, there'll be consequences. Can you tell us a little bit about what
Stay tuned.
Shut up, you racist.
Before you address the Star Tribune has acted in a racist manner towards the black community. It might as well be called the Johannesburg Times.
Thank you.
We looked at the cover on the way here, and it says, video footage shows Thurman with the gun. The reality is that Thurman was the one that was gunned down in cold blood. So how you all are framing the issues is contributing to the discrimination and the abuse that our community is facing. So shame on you, Star Tribune. It's ridiculous. You could have had a million different headlines. Yet you chose one that reinforced white supremacy.
And this lady goes on and on and on about how the Minneapolis Police Department has a legacy of hostility and discrimination against black people, citing several shooting incidents.
Don't keep painting these negative narratives that put police on a pedestal when you know full well, some of you have been covering the Minneapolis Police Department's behavior for years. You've seen videos of them kicking and stomping and beating and sicking dogs on black men. You saw them shoot and kill Jamar Clark, Terrence Franklin, Justine Damon.
Justine Damon, that was the white Australian lady who was shot by a black Somali cop. And that cop was charged with murder. His trial begins in September. How in the hell is that an example of police mistreating black people? More nonsense still. Here are some additional points of incoherence from another cousin of Blevins.
The fact of the matter is he was chased for 2 blocks. For 2 whole blocks. They had a full conversation. Now, if those officers were in danger of their lives, everyone knows in America, he would have been gunned down right then and there. Why did this chase go on for 2 blocks before you opened fire?
Yeah, exactly. If the cops were racist, if they were just out hunting black people, they would have gunned him down on the spot. You're right. So why was there a 2-block chase? Because the police gave him every chance they could to disarm and surrender, but he didn't, and he kept running.
It shouldn't be about a black or white thing. The thing is right and wrong is wrong. Love is love and hate is hate.
Correct, but there's zero indication this case had anything to do with black and white, anything to do with race whatsoever. You're the ones making this case about black and white. You're the ones racializing it. Put any white guy in the same scenario. I guarantee if I head to Minneapolis tomorrow and I behave identically to the way Thurman Blevins did, I will be shot dead by police. And it doesn't matter if the cop chasing me is white, black, red, yellow, or green. That cop will resort to force when I combine a series of actions that give him no other choice. As infuriating as this press conference was, it's necessary viewing. It's necessary to see that for these activists, there is no set of facts in their mind that will ever justify police use of force, potentially even no justification for police altogether. These activists claim to stand for justice.
Only people here looking for justice is just us. Us black people.
But they only stand for kangaroo courts. They disregard due process and the rule of law when it doesn't produce the results that they want. The only question is the degree to which we as a society are willing to enable it. The only way to quell this sort of nonsense is with a little cultural courage, a little backbone to withstand their accusations of racism. You don't have to fear their name calling. You can and should stand up to it and say, no, I am not a racist. Your argument and your relationship with the facts are very weak. The reality is you don't have much choice in the matter anyway. Everyone in this room, the county prosecutor, the media, they all cowered to this mob and enabled them fully, and the mob still called them racist. The mob threatened their community with violence if they don't get the political outcome they want, and they maligned their community with accusations that couldn't be further from the truth, and everyone there in the room just let it happen. It's time to stop enabling. It's time to start demanding better. I won't accept this from any demographic. That's not racism. That's a standard of decency. And if you're willing to lay down for these people simply on account of their race, that is a terrible form of racism itself. The soft bigotry of low expectations. And I refuse to do that. I expect more. That's not because I look down on anyone. That's because I believe that everyone should be treated with basic fairness and respect. If you accept this behavior, you don't have respect for these people. You view them as so low that this behavior is to be expected. It's hard to imagine this cultural decay getting any worse than what we just watched. But if we maintain that attitude of enabling, somehow, some way, it assuredly will. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay, bye.